All right, we're now live. Okay. Welcome everyone to another episode of Behind the Comics. I am your host, Sean Fuller. And today we got some co-hosts with us. As you can see, my little co-host here, and my man got his co-host as well again. So I am the founder and creator of Apollo's Run, as well as the founder of Successful Studios. This is the show where we shine a light on the cosmic comic creators, exploring their journey and celebrating their work as it happens in the comic stream today. Today we're joined by the incredible Alex Schumacher, a creator whose artistic span includes sci-fi, all-age adventure, holiday storytelling, amongst much more. We'll be talking about Flash Gordon and how Flash Gordon adventures, twisties about the taco bench check-in, as well as a lot of other stuff on the application. Now, if you don't mind, we're going to jump right in and start asking a lot of questions. So, Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Sean. I really appreciate it, man. And
No
thanks
problem.
for being flexible with the kiddos, too.
As I told you, we're going to have a kitty day today.
Yeah,
okay?
man. It's going to be your
We're
most
gonna be
popular
father,
episode just because of that.
son triage game today. And
That's
we're
right.
going to see. It's funny because we're talking about children's adventure story, right? So it's kind of it makes fun that we get the opportunity to do this. And yes, my kid is going to be distracted as much as possible. I hope you're doing the same for yours.
Yeah, I think you'll be all right. He's all right now.
Okay, because the minute he gets done, he's going to run to mommy.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I would always like to start off with asking questions about your background. So how got you started? What got you started and how you began your journey as a cartoonist in arts in the beginning? How you got started?
I mean, it kind of, got its hooks in me when I was really little. I was a big fan of, I was born in 1980, so I was a big fan of the Saturday morning cartoons of the 1980s and early 90s, the, Disney movies, Don Bluth, all of those animation um, powerhouses. And I was a huge fan of newspaper comics. That was the thing that I really wanted to get into initially. And my grandparents gave me this huge book, which I still have sitting on my studio shelf, the Smithsonian collection of newspaper comics. So they had they kind of ran from the beginning of official comic strip history through, I think it was like the 1980s. And so, it had everything from the Yellow Kid, which is widely considered the first comic, to, Peanuts is kind of where it stops, but everything in between. And, included one of my favorite cartoonists, Walt Kelly, who did Pogo.
Okay.
Funny enough, it doesn't include Calvin and Hobbes, which Bill Watterson is also a huge inspiration for me.
Okay.
But so it originally started, I didn't think I would ever be able to be an animator. So I went for comic strips, and I was kind of trying that throughout my 20s, and very half-heartedly. I would sort of do a submission, send it out, get unilaterally rejected, and then I know it's awful when that happens. But it's not personal, buddy. It's okay.
It's business. I got it.
Yeah, it's just business. It's not personal. And then later on in my 20s, I kind of pivoted back into comic books with sort of the insistence from a friend who was a writer and wanted somebody to draw a comic for him. So it was a little bit of a transition, because even though comic strips and comic books seem as though the form and function would be fairly similar, they're vastly different as far as how you approach them, because one is sort of a 3 or 4 panel thing, and it's all self-contained for the most part. There's always a gag at the end. And so comic books, you have to think about very differently, and especially because you have things like pages facing each other and how that design is going to look. So, that was kind of a trial by fire, but thankfully it was a very small run of self-published books that we did.
I was going to be like, how many pages was that one? Because how many pages was it? Do you remember?
Originally, the book that I did with my friend, we did 2 issues. It was supposed to be sort of a limited series, again, self-published, very small, but the issues were like 22, 24 pages each, so kind of standard comic book size.
And the reason I brought it up is because a lot of people don't understand that it's okay to start small and to start something
Oh, for
easy
sure.
to get into, and
Yeah.
then once you get up to, as you build up, you get more. What do you call it? You get your feet wet. You know what to do and you know what to expect. Which
Yeah, and
is funny
especially
though, because you start off with cartoons and now you went into actual comics.
yeah, yeah. Well, because that was sort of my gateway, it was like, oh, I could tell these stories and sort of comic strips in particular at the time at least were very animated and very cartoony. So it was something where I kind of naturally, I think, gravitated towards simply because sort of the style that I had enjoyed and wanted to employ in my work was well suited for comic strips. So I figured, if I can't do animation, yeah, I love this medium too, and it's the place where Berkeley Breathed, who did Bloom County, comes from, and like I said, Watterson and um, the Far Side, and it's just like the list goes on and on with those influences. Um,
Okay, okay.
yeah, but like you said too, I mean, starting out small is really the way to go, and nowadays, especially because you have all of those anthologies out there, and most of them are looking for 2 to 3 page stories. So that's a great sort of training ground for learning how to do comics.
And that's good. And so you kind of talk about your earlier creative influences, which was actual cartoon strips
Yeah,
that shape kind of your style, and which
yeah,
is funny now because when I look at your art style with Flash Gordon Adventures, it kind of shows me that young cartoon strip style.
yeah,
That's the first thing I thought about it, but then it's like, but it felt like it's for kids kind of thing on the weekend.
for
But
sure.
kind of good to know what that start was.
Yeah.
So, was there any defining moment when you realized comics were going to be your career path for you?
Honestly, that didn't happen until about 10 years ago. I always loved creativity, and I kind of I at least hoped. I tell myself I knew I was going to do it, but the reality is you just hope that something works out. But comics and cartooning wasn't necessarily my main focus. I actually was focusing on music for a long time, in
Mm,
my 20s and early 30s, and I was playing with different bands and recording and playing live.
such an
And
art background. It's such a creative experience your background is.
it's one of those things like a jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. So when, with the music especially, I kind of had to come to a point. Like I said, it happened like in my mid 30s, about 10 years ago, where I went, okay, if I'm actually going to do one of these professionally, I kind of have to focus on something. And I had actually pitched a couple of series in animation. I had a manager that I was working with, and went down to LA and got to go pitch at the studios and stuff, and that went horribly awry. And so I think about that, and I think about the fact that I'm not that great of a musician. I just love music, but that doesn't mean that you can have a career in it just because you love it. So I sort of settled on comic. Well, not settled on comics, but I decided that comics were probably my best shot to do something professionally.
Okay. So it's kind of like you made that pivot basically say, I want to do something that I spend the next decade doing and be happy with. Because I
Yeah,
think a lot of people don't, that's what the transition is like, are you going to do this? And if you're going to do it at what level? Is this going to be a hobby to you or is it going to be a profession for you?
yeah, and it was also I had to kind of be really honest with myself and consider what I actually did fairly well. And music wasn't that, and animation wasn't that. So it was sort of the process of elimination to go, okay, comics, I'm pretty decent at because I've been doing, I've spent some time on it. Not that I didn't with music. It was just music was one of those things that was always going to kind of be out of my reach as far as doing it professionally. I still love music. I still, noodle around on guitars and stuff, um, but
So
I'll leave.
what was your position in the band then?
I was playing in band since I was about 15. So I mean, I played for almost like 20 years. Um,
Okay.
it,
You
it
said,
didn't mean
that's
anything as far as my.
talented. We just go figure. We gonna make a comic of you being a band member. We just gonna do that.
One of my things is I've always loved like cartoons about bands, and they had a bunch when we were younger. So Alvin and the
Was it the
Chipmunks.
Pussycats? Alvin
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Chipmunks? Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Denver the Last Dinosaur. People don't remember that was a big.
Yeah. I don't remember that one either. That
I
was
love deep cuts. So yeah, there was always something in me where I thought about how I could marry those two creative passions. I know, but we're still working on it. Um, but
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So
yeah,
you worked on several genres. What keep you excited about storytelling in the indie space now?
I think honestly trying new things. For a long time, I was very sort of hesitant or trepidatious about going outside of this sort of box that I was very comfortable in, which was more semi autobio. There were a couple guys. I moved up to San Francisco in my 20s, and there was a couple guys. One was named Keith Knight. He does a comic called The K Chronicles, and then another guy named Tom Bayland who did a book called True Story, Swear to God, and they're both very semi-autobiographical, and that kind of flipped a switch in my 20s, like I said, where I went, oh, this is what I should be doing, this is what I'm good at. But later in life, it's, that gets very stale, at least for me, to do the
Mhm.
same thing over and over, and I'm kind of a restless creator. I know we are. We need to be entertained. So I'm sort of a restless creator in that manner, and so switching it up and or being given the opportunities to switch it up is something that keeps me really excited about it, and
Okay.
and kind of like focusing more on my illustration to the point where I feel like I can draw different things now has made that a little bit more fun too.
All right. So so this is a fun part, right? Because now we get to talk into your actual creative work now.
So
So we're going to talk about a bit about Flash Garden Adventures Volume Two.
okay.
So Flash Gordon is actually such a iconic legacy, right?
Oh yeah.
So my question was, what was it like contributing to its anthology?
I'm sorry, the child was screaming one more time.
No, you're fine, you're fine. So what was it like contributing to its anthology?
Oh, I mean, it was a dream for me. You know, the aforementioned Smithsonian collection of newspaper comics had a bunch, or well, it had several of the old Alex Raymond Flash Gordons. You know, the original comic strip from back in the day. And so
Mhm.
I've been a fan of the props. You know, I love the cheesy, campy '80s movie. I love all Flash Gordon, iterations. So when I got the
I was gonna say Space Ghost Ghost to Ghost could fall up in there too. Like,
Yeah, totally, absolutely. And so when I got the kind of email to join that collection, and also, I mean, I'm not going to lie, when I saw who was already involved, like Stan Sakai and Mike Kunkel, who does Hero Bear and the Kid, these people who I'd idolized for years, it was a no brainer for me. It was not hard to say yes. And when I got to do it kind of in like like you said, sort of a style suited for kids, we were sort of adapting it. Mad Cave has like adult Flash Gordon, YA Flash Gordon, and kids Flash Gordon, which I think is really cool. But they sort of have
actually,
all the versions.
so that's a good thing, right? Because so, what kind of tone or themes did you personally bring to the Flash Garden story, especially when you're trying to target kids the way you were doing?
I mean, for me, it's always about bringing the funny for that age in a lot of ways, and making the visuals very funny. Like the writing and gags are important too, but I think for that age group, it's way more important to bring the funny. So like Looney Tunes are a big
Mhm.
influence on me, especially when I was a kid. And I actually, it's in the hardcover. It didn't make it into the paperback, but I did a 2-page spread that's sort of an homage to the old Ralph and Sam
Okay.
comics. Remember those? The sheepdog and the coyote. So there was the coyote who was always trying to eat the sheep, and then the sheepdog who was trying to stop him. I don't know if you remember those.
No, no. When you said that, I thought about Ronnie Cody. With the I have a few comics that pop into it. The Coyote one when he's running down the runner. Shoot, I keep forgetting his
Right.
name.
So that's Wile E. Coyote, but there was funny
Ronnie
enough,
Coyote, yeah.
there's a different coyote. So the famous there was only like 2 lines spoken in the entire, whenever that specific cartoon came or that series came on, and it was just "Good morning, Ralph. Good morning, Sam," and then they would beat each other up for 2 minutes, and then it would be "Good night, Sam. See you tomorrow, Ralph." And so I did sort of
Wow.
to that with Flash and Ming, but that's only in the hardcover. So
Okay.
um,
So now we have like Punk Taco's Adventures, right? And Punk Taco has an amazing mix of humor, heart, and cosmic music energy. What
yeah.
inspires this series, though?
So that's created by Adam Walenta, who is the senior editor at Paper Cuts. He's also the one who got everybody together, organized the Flash Gordon anthologies. Hey, cutie. And then So he's done Punk Taco for years, and he and I actually got to know each other as indie cartoonists online, and we were just supporting each other and sharing each other's work. And then he became an editor at Paper Cuts and started, bringing his friends along with him, for all intents and purposes. So Punk Taco
Okay.
is his and his son's creation. And so it's a book I've always loved and tried to help support and promote. So when they were reissuing it, when they were reissuing it with Paper Cuts, he asked me to contribute a page because he was doing a new section. There
Okay.
was a bunch of different cartoonists. Chuck D, by the way, is also going to be in that book, which is to have my name in a book with Chuck D is pretty friggin' cool.
So there's a lot of stuff there, right? Because I know you did Punk Taco Adventures. I know you did Flash Gordon Adventures, and there's even holidays in the courtroom, right?
Cloakroom, yeah.
Yeah, and you have a lot of anthologies that you work with, and for something like a holiday anthology, which is funny, twisted vibes. How did you become involved in that Scott's project for this? How did you get involved in it? Because you see, you get calls. I can see that you get the calls.
I do now. I mean, that's like the last year of my life, but I've been making comics for 10 to 15 years, so it's
Mhm.
not been unicorns and rainbows for the majority of that. um, but so the Scott Snyder one was actually a friend of mine. So that anthology is done by writing students of Scott Snyder's.
Okay.
So a friend of mine was one of his, or is one of his students, and he needed somebody to illustrate the story that he was putting in the first cloakroom that we did, which was last year. It
Oh,
was and we're doing them very Jewish themed because we're both Jewish. So the first one was called Crime and Passover, and it's about this little sort of megalomaniacal wannabe mafioso boss who's like trying to manipulate his family, and it's very very funny. It
it's
felt very much like home to me. It felt like reform Jewish families. So he asked me to do it, and I said yeah, absolutely. And it gave me a chance to try out sort of a new style that I had been working on, to apply that to comics.
so. Here's my question: do you find short stories, um, short? Oh, sorry, let's do that over again. Do you find short form storytelling more freeing and or more challenging?
Honestly, I think it's more challenging. I think the shorter ones, I know, but the
I
shorter ones, because you have to encapsulate everything that you want to say, everything that you want to show, everything that you want to do in like 4 or 5 pages, which is, I think, you know, exponentially more difficult because that economy of words, the economy of pictures is super difficult. I don't know if you're like me. So somebody like me, because I write as well, and I'm
Mhm.
very verbose. I write a lot, and so it, getting things down to whittling them down to 2 or 3 pages is very rough. But it's a good exercise because I think artists need to sort of challenge themselves in that way, and it's been a good challenge for me. And
And during this process, because it's definitely got the opportunity to talk to a lot of comic book creators, comic book artists. I see a lot of them challenging themselves in art styles that they're not even used. Okay, see now both of our kids challenge. It's like y'all so far, y'all on two. He's like he start first and he's following.
oh yeah, it's like it just takes the first one, and then the other one goes, oh yeah, I'll join the party.
Okay, cool. So so oh Lord, thank you, Mama. All right. So okay,
There you
it's
go.
not gonna help, but I'll take it.
I'll give
All
him
right.
something to
So what
point
we're
to.
gonna do now? We're gonna break away for a quick commercial break. So I'm gonna say this is the part for me to pay my bills. And after we're gonna jump right back into section two, we'll talk about the kind of the creative process that you have for when you create a comic.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Give me
This
give me 30
video
seconds.
is sponsored by mycomic.ai, the first of its kind platform built to solve real struggles comic creators like us face. If you've ever felt stuck trying to make consistent sales from your work, this is your solution. mycomic.ai helps you turn your comic into a real business and grow it into a full-time income stream. Check it out today at mycomic.ai.
All right, we are back. And so now I love to talk about this section is where we go into the creative process that goes into comics, right? So here's my first question out the gate. what does your creative process looks like from idea to finished art?
Ideas usually come, that like just like anybody else at any time. I always have. Well, I used to have notepads or pieces of paper around to write things down all the time, but now you have your phone, so you just put it in your notepads.
Mhm.
But yeah, you just jot stuff down. It's usually just a germ of something. Once in a great while, although it's rare, once in a great while, an idea will come to you kind of fully formed, and you just have to try and work faster than your brain is working at that point. But the majority of the time, it's either just a little character sketch that you enjoy and might want to make something out of, or a story. I know, or a story idea that you might want to make something out of, and then you sort of grow it from there. But for me, it's very rare that I draw something first. It's usually writing for me. I kind of have to have the bones of the story and the characters and kind of know them a little bit before I start
Oh,
drawing them, because that
okay.
the emotion kind of needs to come from the illustrations too. And like I said, I mean, people have different processes, and some people can do that. They'll draw a sketch, they have the character, and then they'll write from there. But I'm kind of backwards because I think I always approached it sort of thinking of myself as a writer. Um,
So, so
so
let me see if I get it. So you start off with like writing down the characters first and
yeah,
trying to get a good idea for them, and then once you have a story behind it because you're a writer, then you kind of go into like the illustration of those characters
correct.
and
Yeah,
then a story.
yeah,
That
and
sounds like a cool.
yeah.
So here's my next question because this is going to be interesting because your background tells me this is going to be a fun question. So how do you balance work on multiple different projects with completely different tones?
That is a good question. I think the answer is, do you take breaks? And a lot of times, if I'm doing, if I'm writing on something and then drawing on something else, and so kind of varying it like that, I think it's easier to keep compartmentalized a little bit, because it can be different, or it can be difficult to jump from like different tones, different stories, different genres, because your mind is sort of set on one thing, on one sort of
Mm-hmm. You're in the zone.
and to like switch it up immediately is really tough. So what I will often do is I'll make it like one day is for this thing, one day is for this thing. If I am juggling multiple projects, because I just find, yeah,
Okay, that sounds great. So I realize that collaboration is a big part of all your books. How do you
especially
approach
now, yeah,
working with writers, editors, and other artists when it comes
yeah,
to your projects?
yeah, especially now. Because again, I think for the longest time I just sort of consider myself a cartoonist, and like didn't think much of my art. I just figured, the writing and the artwork together would kind of carry each other to some degree.
Hmm.
And then I started focusing on the art quite a bit more in the last year, and just for my own, gratification. It wasn't even There wasn't any necessary like destination or endpoint in mind for that, but it became this thing that I sort of found why I love drawing again, and I've really enjoyed doing that. And you find that when you kind of have that reintroduction of why you love things to begin with, I found it to be like widely reinvigorating, and had me come back at it and approach it with a completely different mindset, and a really really positive and optimistic one. Um, so the collaborations then became, yeah, I'll accept jobs where I'm just drawing, whereas I wouldn't have, 2 years ago, even because I didn't think that much of my own illustration work. But
Um,
yeah.
so that's a good idea, right? Now that you get the opportunity to do all these collaborations. So what's your general philosophy when it comes to visual storytelling and character designs now?
Um, Clarity. I think that's like the biggest thing. Like you could do the craziest, most inventive layouts or character designs or action sequences that anybody's ever seen on a page. But if nobody can tell what the hell's going on, it's not going to matter. So,
Oh, okay.
so like clarity is the biggest thing, and I think I approach a page now with that in mind far more so than I did when I was younger, because I was trying to do the like
You're
cool,
trying
layout.
I was going to say that too. You said it better than I would have. You start off with cool and then you realize you get lost in the sauce.
Yeah, you start with cool and then you go, no, but I need to get to clear. So that, because I loved Mike Mignola. There were like three Mikes that I really loved when I got back into comics. I mean, I still do, but it was Mike Mignola, Mike Omin, and Mike Allred. So, these guys, they do vastly different things, but Mignola and Omin in particular have this way of like designing a page and looking at a page and designing spreads that was electric and exciting, and I really wanted to do that kind of stuff. And so those elements are still in there to some degree, but it's really about clarity for me now, and especially when you're writing for younger audiences. I think they don't care about the bells and whistles, and they don't really care how it looks. They just want a fun story.
Okay, so now that actually gets the opportunity to jump from the creative process to now to the business of the community and the events, right?
Yeah.
So you have a holiday pop-up happening December 6th, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, right here in Portland.
Yeah. So can you share what fans can expect for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, sorry for the mess. We just moved to Portland about a month ago, so the studio is still getting put together. But I will have copies of the Flash Gordon book. I'll have both hardcover and paperback. So, I have one story in the paperback and two in the hardcover. I have my middle grade graphic novel, The Effects of Pickled Herring, which came out in 2024. It's about a brother and sister who are preparing for their bar and bat mitzvah together. Hilarity ensues, except for the fact that their grandmother has Alzheimer's that they find out. So it adds a little bit of an edge to it, and also kind of talks about things that age group doesn't get to see a lot, I think, in books.
Okay.
So of that, I will have some of the cloakrooms available that I also did a variant cover for. So I'll have those and probably some original art for the first time. I've thought about it. I've had friends suggest I post these warm-ups that I do online, and people seem to enjoy them. So friends of mine have suggested maybe trying to sell them. So I'm going to be bringing some to the pop-up.
Okay.
It's fan art, so clamoring for it already.
Okay. So what has been one of your biggest lessons you learned working in mainstream and indie publishing?
Don't try to impress other people. Don't do what you do for other people. Do it for yourself. Because when it comes down to it, yeah, you're going to have to compromise, especially if you work with sort of the bigger publishers. They're going to want their say. They're going to want to leave their handprints on stuff. But when you find yourself start doing things because you think an editor is going to like it, or you think a publisher is going to like it, that's when it falls flat. I think I think it's very rare that people try to come up with something for a publisher or an editor and it actually works out. So I think write for yourself, draw for yourself. And the big question, right? How do you get into making comics? How do you start creating comics? You make comics. That's how you do it. If you make a comic, congratulations, you're a comics creator. Now, a career
in orders to actually publish a book. So.
Or having a career in comics and getting paid for comics, that's an entirely different subject. But if you want to just get started making comics, you can do that now. And again, do it for yourself. Do things that make you, that inspire you, that get you excited. And because I think for a long time I was trying to put out what I thought people wanted, and it never went well. So be true to yourself. Be true to what you like. And as there's some caveats to that. Don't be negative towards other people. Don't be cruel or those kind of things. But if you're being true to yourself and what you love and it's not hurting anybody, then that's what I think should be sort of your true north when it comes to creating. Is it has to be for yourself.
And so before we go into our last session, I have to ask now. So how important is community support both online as well as offline?
I'm sorry, what was that about?
How important is community support?
So important
for keeping indie comics thriving? Because I really think that I think it's the Achilles heel for the indie comic scene is for the creators, especially upcoming creators, to kind of find their audience.
Yeah, it's wholly important, and I was talking to a friend not too long ago, and they were asking about community and networking. And the point that I'll reiterate now is, I think when you're young, you think the important networking is publishers and editors and people who can do stuff for you, and that kind of seems to be like the brass ring or where you're supposed to be networking. But what I've found to be vastly more important is networking with other artists, other writers, other creators who are sort of at your level. And that's the support and the encouragement and the love that's going to sustain you. Because I've met a lot of great editors and publishers, don't get me wrong, but they're not the ones. They're out there to make money. They're not the ones who are out there to fluff your ego. So it's wholly important. I think it's vitally important to have a network, both online and off, of artists and friends that can encourage each other and keep each other honest. Because that's another thing. It's very easy to stop or to get kind of lazy in your creating, procrastinate. And so when you have people who are, will have no problem telling you to get off your ass and do something, that's important too.
And come, hey, and especially if they're in groups where they're like, let's do a artist drawing along, and everyone's just drawing together.
Totally, yeah.
I find it fun to be now in those environments where it's like, oh, cool, people do these things. All right, cool. I feel like I'm more legit now. I feel it.
For sure, because it's like Comic-Con. You think, if you've ever been to comic conventions and you interact with other artists there, and you go home feeling super energized and wanting to create, you can have that all year long. Like you said, you do draw along. You have your own network, your community that you talk about these things with, and you boost each other up, and you get each other to work. And so that's, I don't think you can have a career without that, without community.
So so going into the final section now, so what upcoming projects should fans be keeping an eye out for you and for next year and beyond?
Yeah, so we have the Punk Taco Adventures, like you mentioned. That'll be out in January, also from Paper Cuts. So I only have one page in there, but it's still a book everybody should pick up. It's going to be great. Has a lot of great names in it. Like I said, Chuck D is going to have a page in there, which is wild. And after that, we have another Cloakroom, the holidays one. So that Kickstarter will be going live early next year. And if people follow my social media, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Blue Sky. I'll let everybody know when that launches as well. And then working on a couple of pitches for some specific editors, but no real traction there yet since I'm still developing stuff. But hopefully lots in the new year to announce.
Okay. So when you look back over your year, not over your year, over your career so far, what are some of your proudest moments that brings to mind for you?
I think getting The Effects of Pickled Herring published, even though it wasn't necessarily, an ideal situation, not to talk poorly about anybody in publishing industry, but having that book made and having people connect with it, and honestly having the American Library Association call it one of the best graphic novels for kids of 2024 was pretty cool. And I know that's tooting my own horn a little bit, but the reality is like,
we gonna toot it over here. So
well, and libraries were so important to me as a kid. They were such a huge part of my life. And libraries, I know a lot of writers, a lot of creators, libraries were safe havens and are safe havens for people. So to have the Library Association recognize something that I did was just emotionally overwhelming. It was fantastic. And I think just coming to realize that I'm not competing with anybody else. I'm just competing with myself. That was a really big sort of lightning bolt to the brain moment for me. And I know it's not necessarily a specific accomplishment or a specific project, but I think that's a place I needed to come to sort of, progress in my career.
But honestly speaking, what you just said, that felt like to me like a full circle moment. Started off with library, your grandparents giving you the book, and then all the way now to being in the library yourself. That felt like a full circle moment, and I think for that alone, it should be congratulated. And I will toot your horn for you. Don't feel bad. We do that over here.
Well, thank
Um,
you. That's very kind of you. And yeah, I think it's 100% a full circle moment, and it's something that I do not take for granted. Especially, I've gone 10 or 15 years without much recognition at all. And that's not why you make art. That's not why you put things into the world. But that said, a little bit of recognition also feels.
I'm listen. Um, Shoot, why does his name skip me right now? I was like, there's enough artists that died and got their flowers after that. I'm not about supporting that. I want you to
Yeah.
get the flowers when you were alive.
Yeah.
And so when I see someone get those moments, I'm always proud for it. So here's the thing now. I forgot to tell you this before we get on, but I want actually know what advice would you give to an emerging creator who wants to build a long-term career in comics?
I think piggybacking a little bit off of what I said before is focus on what you love. Even if they're not the projects or the characters or the stories that pay the bills at this time, take paying work. Take work that will pay some of the bills if you can find it, or get a day job. That's also something that I think there's some weird shame that comes into it when you're creative. Like if you're not making all of your money off your art, there's some weird shame that goes into getting a day job. But you know what? If it pays your bills and allows you to create, there's nothing wrong with it at all. So just create what you love. Find jobs that pay if you can. If you can't, get a day job. And there's no guarantee for any of us that we'll have a career, but I think for me the most important thing at the end of it all is to look back and not have any regrets. So maybe a way to do that is to just, it's not that you don't care what other people want, but I think you have to be true to yourself, and you have to be honest with yourself in some ways too. But again, if you want to make comics, if your goal is to be a comics creator, you can do that now. And waiting for permission is one of the worst things you could do in an art career.
All right, I'm going to summarize everything you say, guys. You don't need permission; just get it done.
Absolutely, that's the thing, man. And like because I think you don't realize at times just how much it takes to get recognized or to get some momentum going. Okay, here. To get some momentum going. And so it's, I don't know, it's just like any other industry, right? It's like you work hard, you be kind to people. I hate to quote Neil Gaiman because, problematic fave and all of that, but there was this commencement speech that he gave where he said there are 3 things that you need to succeed. And it's be on time, do good work, and be nice to work with. And he said you don't even need all 3; you just need 2. And I find that for me nowadays, it's be good to work with and do good work, because the on time thing I've just come to terms.
That's someone else's laws. I always say that. That's someone else's rules.
As long as I can keep the other 2 going. But I think that's really what it is set your sights, have goals, but allow them to change too, because they're going to. I don't think that's a piece of advice. That was a lot of it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Because now I'm going to ask you. So where can people find you if they want to get in contact with you, support your work? Where can they find you?
So my website, which has been sorely neglected, is alexschumacherart.com. But I'm very active on Instagram and Blue Sky and Facebook, and all of that is the same thing, which is just at AJ Schumacher Art. That's my handles based on all of them. I like to keep it simple. I like to say for people to find me, but the reality is I like to keep it simple so I remember it, because I'm not getting any younger.
I understand. So I want to thank you again for thank you, Alex, for coming and joining us from Behind the Comics.
Absolutely.
Your versatility crossed different. Okay, come on, don't do that to me. Cross genres from Flash Gordon to Punk Tacos to holiday anthologies is inspiring. I know our viewers is going to love hearing about your journey.
Thank you.
You can watch everyone watching Alex's website. He just said it. You can also follow him on Instagram. support Holiday on Kickstarter when it comes out, as well as Flash Gordon through paperback. This show was sponsored by mycomic.ai, helping creators grow smarter and monetize better. I'm Sean Fuller, creator of Apollo's Run, as well as you can, and thank you for staying tuned. And before I go, we have to thank our co-host today, our lovely little sons.
A little crazy, but he says thank you though.
So Sire and Eli was here today. We had fun. We were good dads today. Hopefully the show showed that our kids were well behaved. And we had no outside support from the mamas.
Except for the money making.
And for the rest of everyone, I want to thank you for staying tuned. Thank you for all your work, and peace, and enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
Thanks, Sean.